broadening your horizons is extremely useful. My point is, keep your mind open, and I think you'll be surprised and learn more about yourself and learn more about what you really like. Going to a conference can serve to benefit you big time. Hey everybody, my name is Liam Bloebaum. I'm a fourth-year medical student at ATSU University, Kirksville College of Osteopathic Medicine, and I am applying to dermatology this application cycle. Welcome to another episode of YPN's Guide to DOing Med School, brought to you by the Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons, Young Physicians Network. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about conferences, why they matter, how to find them, how to plan about going, and how to get the most out of every opportunity that you can. So I'm going to share with you some of my own experiences as well, particularly from the American Academy of Dermatology annual meeting. And hopefully I can share with you some of the knowledge and wisdom that I gained from going to that. Now, before we jump in, I did want to give just a quick disclaimer. Everything that I am sharing with you is based on my own experiences and research. I don't represent ATSU University, MAOPS, or any other organization. This is just one medical student's perspective, and every person that you are going to talk to about conferences in this case is going to be different. But I hope with what I share with you that you are going to gain some valuable nuggets of wisdom. So I wanted to start this episode off by just talking to you about why conferences are worth your time. When I started medical school, I wasn't even thinking about them. The only things that were on my mind at the time were just like figuring out how to make friends in a new setting, what to do to pass my classes, and figuring out how to manage the little free time that I had. So conferences really weren't on my radar. But I thought, conferences were just something that only doctors did, not students. Honestly, I assumed they were for networking at the attending level and maybe for residents. What I didn't realize, though, is just how valuable that conferences can be for us as medical students. So first off, they are networking powerhouses. Whether you're at a national meeting with thousands of attendees or a state meeting with a few hundred, or even just a local small one with maybe tens of people, you're in a room with people who can shape your career. Program directors, residents, faculty who run fellowships. A single conversation at a conference might open a door to a research opportunity, or even an audition rotation, or an inside track into a residency program. Conferences are also deep learning experiences. Depending on the ones that you go to, you can pick the sections that match your interests, and you'll learn things that medical school never touches. For instance, I've been in sessions on practice management, coding and building, and even like nitty-gritty details of just different medical instruments. These are skills and insights that make a huge, huge difference later, especially once you're out in practice. Another big one, they are career boosters. Even if you're not presenting, just showing up demonstrates that you've engaged in your field. But if you do present, whether it's a poster, a talk, or serving on a student committee, it's a clear way to show dedication and to add to your CV. Another big one is just exploring your interests. When you're in just starting medical school, maybe you have an idea of what you want to do, or maybe you're still trying to figure that out. Conferences are a good way to look at that, because you get a gauge of things beyond the scope of what medical school teaches you. And you get to see things that you don't really see in medical school. And having that new exposure might make you consider things that you hadn't otherwise considered if you didn't go to this conference. And then finally, conferences are a huge mental reset. Let's be real. Medical school can be exhausting. Getting out of the day-to-day grind, traveling to a new city, and surrounding yourself with people who are passionate about the same specialty, that's really energizing. And every time I've gone to a conference, I felt refreshed and I've come back more motivated than before. Going to a conference can serve to benefit you big time. Now, it's important to note, not all conferences look the same, and that's a good thing. National specialty meetings like the AAD annual meeting are absolutely massive. Thousands of people are attending, you have multiple lectures going on at once, and there are exhibit halls that feel like mini cities. They give you a big picture view of the field and exposure to cutting edge science, but it can also be intimidating for some people, and that's just something to keep in mind. And that's not me to discourage you from going to them, but they can be big. And for me, that was something that was both a little scary, but also really exciting. You also have more local level meetings, like the MAOPS annual meeting, which I've attended twice, or the Missouri Dermatological Society annual meeting. These are smaller and they're more personal, but that can actually work to your benefit too. You can actually sit down with local physicians, local program directors, and residents without feeling like you have to fight through a crowd to get someone's attention. And it gives you an opportunity to know them better and for them to know you better. These connections can be just as important, if not more important, especially if you plan to stay in the region for a residency. And these people that you meet may know others outside of your region and can really build up your network. Then there's also advocacy focused meetings like DO Day on the Hill. And for a conference like that, the main goal is to influence health policy. Instead of going to lectures, you're actively meeting with lawmakers and representatives. And you're learning how your voice can matter beyond just the clinic, but can be an active voice in advocating for your patients and your fellow doctors. Each type of conference has its value. The national meetings can broaden your network, but state meetings can do the same too, especially on a local level. And advocacy can give you leadership experience that otherwise you wouldn't be able to get in other settings. So you have a lot of options, and that's a good thing. If you are thinking about attending a conference or multiple conferences, ask yourself, what specialties are you interested in? What aspects of medicine do you like? Do you prefer the outpatient side? Do you prefer the inpatient side? Do you like doing hands-on procedural stuff? Or maybe you're more research-oriented and want to go into clinical research. Or maybe you're more politically active and want to engage in health policy or advocate for your fellow students or doctors. Whatever that may be, there's a conference for that. So once you picked out the conferences that you want to go to, it's time to prepare. So preparation is pretty important because going blind can be overwhelming. And that is also dependent on the conferences that you do attend. And you'll hear me say that a lot too. First thing to do in preparation is register early. Depending on the conference that you go to, they can be expensive. And a lot of those medical societies that host these conferences may have early bird rates that can save you a good chunk of money. And on that same topic, you can also save money from these group rates at hotels if the medical society is partnered with some of these hotels for these events. Second, look at the program ahead of time. There may be a list of sessions that will be hosted, and that could be available online. This isn't necessarily true for all conferences, but if it is for your particular one, it's always nice to read ahead. Identify your must-see sessions, but also don't pack your schedule too tightly. There may be instances where you'd want to leave the room for networking, or maybe there's some other spontaneous opportunities. On the topic of networking, also think about who's going to be there. Maybe there's a doctor that you admire, or if you're research-oriented, maybe there's a doctor that published some papers that you read, and they're giving a talk. That gives you the opportunity to introduce yourself to them after a session, and that can make a lasting connection. I know from a personal level, this is something that's benefited me. I introduced myself to a doctor after they gave a talk, and at least in part because of that, I was able to secure an audition rotation at a program that I'm interested in. So knowing who will be there can definitely be of great benefit to you. So onto the research side of things, and you don't have to do this, but if you're interested in presenting at a conference, think about the timeline for submitting an abstract. Depending on the conference, the deadline for that can be as early as 6 to 9 months before the meeting. which means that you may need to start planning during the previous academic year. Now, that sounds scary, and in a lot of cases, that's not the case, and it may just be a few months in advance, but it's always something to think about if you're interested in presenting at a particular conference. And then finally, packing. It is so important to pack smart. Of course, bring professional wear, but you should also bring comfortable shoes. You may be doing quite a bit of walking if it's a conference the size of the AAD meeting. And if that's the case, I think comfort over aesthetics is more important. Also, bring a backpack and your laptop for notes. There may be some aspects of some of these talks that are interesting to you or that you may want to read up on. So it's a good idea to document just so you can have that to remember. And in terms of the backpack, you may need it for a lot of samples. Certain conferences will be giving away lots of free samples. Now that I talked with you about preparing for a conference, I want to walk you through my experience at one that I went to, the 2025 AAD annual meeting in Orlando, Florida. The first thing that I noticed when I stepped into that convention center was the size. The convention center was absolutely massive. There were lecture halls that span 3 levels and half a mile across, and I do not exaggerate that size at all. There were literally thousands of people that attended this conference. There were dermatologists, non-dermatology physicians, mid-level providers, residents, attendings, other medical students, and industry reps. And this conference lasted an entire 5 days. It wasn't just a weekend trip, so there was always something going on. And it was a little overwhelming for me, I'll be honest, but it was also really exciting. Now, one highlight from my experience was that there was an e-poster that I helped out with, and it ended up getting accepted to the AAD meeting. And I thought that was amazing to have research accepted in a national meeting. And it was something that not only gave me something valuable to put on my CV, but it also let me stand by some work that I helped out with. And it let me talk with other attendees, and it felt like I was actively contributing to the specialty as a whole. The sessions were another huge takeaway. Now, I mainly focused on my primary interest at the time, which were skin cancer and Mohs surgery. But I also made it an effort to attend some resident level lectures on things outside my scope of interest. Dermoscopy, general dermatology, dermatopathology, and peds dermatology. And these were things that broadened my perspective and gave me tools that I'll need in residency should I match into dermatology. Even if they go outside my primary focus at that time, it made me consider things outside of just Mohs surgery and skin cancer. And I'll tell you, knowing what I know now, having experienced this conference and going through audition rotations, my interests expanded beyond just what I had mentioned earlier, because now I have an interest in general dermatology. I have an interest in medical dermatology, and really every aspect of it is something that I just find really fascinating. My point is, keep your mind open, and I think you'll be surprised and learn more about yourself and learn more about what you really like. The other big thing, and maybe one of the biggest things, was networking. Even just walking the halls, I saw med students meeting up with each other, saying, oh, hey, I hadn't seen you in such a long time. How have you been? Or just doctors chatting with each other, planning to have a dinner that night, or just catching up on life. But it also made me realize that even at an event with such a large attendance, that people in this field were just so well connected, which really added to the importance of networking. Now, there was one lecture that I attended specifically over closing Mohs defects, and I introduced myself to one of the Mohs surgeons after the talk. I gave her my contact info, and she gave me her email, and this ended up being so much to my advantage. Because I reached out to this Mohs surgeon, I was able to secure an audition rotation at a residency program that I was interested in. And she actually ended up being my primary preceptor for that rotation. Funny enough, this episode will have been posted a month after I finished it. But I did this at most of the lectures that I attended. I thanked the speaker for talking, taking the time to teach us, and I also exchanged contact info with them. Because who knows, you may meet them again, or you may even work with them. And having a face to your name is something that's really going to help you in the long run. And then there was the exhibit hall. That was also absolutely massive. Just about every skincare dermatology related company that you could imagine was there. From the pharmaceutical companies to just general skincare that you can get for over the counter stuff to even just like surgical instruments. All of it was there. And I'll be honest, it was overwhelming, like I mentioned about the size, but it was also really exciting. Medical students and doctors were lined up at all of these booths waiting to pick up all these free samples. And by the time that I came back home, I came home with what felt like, and realistically probably was, thousands of dollars in skincare and product samples. It will have been about 6 months since I attended that conference that this episode has been posted. And I'm still using the products that I got from that conference, and I haven't even made a dent in them. So I kind of see the conference as a gift that keeps on giving, even though I spent money on it. Beyond the conference, though, I also carved out some time to explore Orlando and enjoy the city. I hadn't flown out anywhere in 21 years in that time, so it gave me the opportunity to just enjoy it on my own, enjoy a little mini vacay on my own. And having that balance made the whole trip both educational and also really refreshing. I got to enjoy the nice weather and try out some new food, and I was able to reconnect with an old friend of mine that moved to Florida. And all in all, this conference was just, it was absolutely incredible. And I think it played a big role in just cementing my interest in dermatology. Even though the AAD annual meeting was the most impactful conference that I've been to, I also wanted to take the time to talk about a conference that I went to twice, which was one that was on a more local level. So I went to the Missouri Osteopathic Annual Convention, which is the MAOPS annual meeting. And unlike AAD, this isn't just one specialty. This is a conference that brings together Missouri DO doctors and DO students from both Missouri DO schools, and it represents a wide variety of specialties. And that broader scope is part of what makes the experience so valuable. So there were a few sessions that really stood out to me. One of them was on advocacy, on how doctors can get involved in shaping healthcare policy, both at a state and a national level, and how you can get in contact with your local representatives and educate them on healthcare issues. Hearing directly from doctors who've stepped into those roles gave me a new appreciation for how much influence that we can have outside of the clinic and outside of the hospital. And for those of you who are really interested in the bone wizardry side of things, there's also a hands-on OMT workshop, which was a nice reminder of, where we came from and how all of this started. And it's also a reminder of some of the principles that can get overshadowed once you're really buried in those rotations. Being able to practice some of those OMM skills, even if you're not interested in OMM once you become your own doctor, is something that will still be helpful during your clinical rotations. Depending on the DO school that you go to, you may be evaluated in part by your OMT skills. So it's always something to kind of keep in your toolbox. But the event that I found that was most meaningful at this conference was a specialty speed dating event. Basically, it was a structured way for you to meet doctors from different specialties, ask them questions, and get rapid-fire insights into their day-to-day work and career paths. For me, it was an efficient way to broaden my network beyond just dermatology and to hear perspectives I normally wouldn't get just sticking to my own interests. And that also parallels my experience at the AAD meeting, where I didn't just stick to my interest of just Mohs surgery and skin cancer, but also other things I felt like could be useful. And who knows, talking to some of these doctors, you may have a budding interest in another specialty or an aspect of medicine that you've never considered. The atmosphere at MOAC was also different. It was smaller, it was more personal, and it was really community driven. People there remembered you, they would check in on your training path, and they encourage you to get more involved. It felt like less of a conference and more like being at some kind of community get-together. And when you're at a more local level conference, you also have the opportunity to make a lot more friends who are in similar situations that you are. At MOAC, I had a lot more time to socialize, and because of that, I made a lot of good friends that I still keep up with today, and even some of them I share a rotation site with. So while AAD gave me the national stage and that global exposure to dermatology, MAOPS also reminded me of the roots of osteopathic medicine, advocacy, community, and connection across multiple specialties. It's a different kind of growth, but it was also something that was extremely valuable to me.
You're listening to the YPN's Guide to DOing Med School. This podcast is hosted by the Young Physicians Network of MAOPS, the Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons. MAOPS has been the voice of osteopathic physicians in Missouri for the past 125 years, advocating for the osteopathic profession at the local, state, and federal levels. This podcast is created for students, by students, to help with the unique struggles of medical school, tailored to the osteopathic experience. Have a topic that you'd like to hear about next season? Let us know at our social media pages. You can find us on Instagram at DO_MAOPS, that's MAOPS, and on Facebook at Missouri Association of Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons. This is YPN's Guide to DOing Medical School.
So like I mentioned earlier, I was able to add an e-poster presentation to my CV, which leads to the next segment of this talk, which is getting involved. Now, you don't have to present to get value from a conference. Just attending is incredibly valuable in of itself. But if you do want to take it a step further, there's a lot of ways to go about it. Just like I did, posters are the most common entry point for students. And typically it involves submitting an abstract for work that you had done, and there's usually a deadline for that, which varies. Information on that is something that you can find on the conference's website. You could also potentially do an oral presentation. Now, these are a lot harder to get, but you also get much more visibility from them. And they can be of even higher quality in terms of level of contribution to your CV. And depending on the conference that you attend, some of them may have student leadership opportunities or mentorship programs that can directly connect you with faculty or other doctors. But like I said earlier, if you want to present, it's a good idea to start early. Depending on the conference that you go to, abstract deadlines can be as early as 6 to 9 months before the conference starts. But again, even without presenting, just showing up, learning, and building relationships can be just as beneficial as adding a line to your CV. Getting involved doesn't just mean research or leadership. It just means being active and interacting with others. Just be present. I wanted to briefly touch on this too, and there's some things I had mentioned here prior as well. And these are just some mistakes that would be a good idea to avoid. I've seen myself make some of these mistakes before, and this was also advice that was passed down to me by other mentors and other med students, and it's proved useful to me. So not having a plan and wandering around is never a good idea, and you are going to miss a lot of opportunities and just be totally unprepared. You also shouldn't spend the entire time talking with friends necessarily, because that takes away opportunities to meet with new people that you can network with. Now, that by no means that you shouldn't, hang out with your friends and all of that, but you should balance between those at least. And on a related note, you shouldn't treat the whole thing like just a vacation and skip a lot of these sessions. Odds are you're paying money to go here, and at least from my point of view, you should be making the most out of it as you can. But at the same time, you can also overschedule and just pack your schedule so much that you don't have time to network or to rest. And that can take a toll on you. I did that during one of my days at the AAD meeting, and I was absolutely pooped at the end of the day and just could not think. But I think the biggest mistake that you can make is not follow up after you make connections with your students or your potential mentors, the doctors that you met there, because they are very useful assets that can help advance your career and provide you with meaningful connections. If you avoid these mistakes, I think you can maximize your experience attending whatever conference that you may go to. So this next segment is more just survival tips, and these are things that can make a big difference in your experience. Some of these things are things that I had already mentioned, but I still feel like they're important to reiterate. First thing, dress nice, but wear comfortable shoes. You don't necessarily have to come in wearing dress shoes. You can just wear sneakers. It's whatever's comfortable for you, because you could be doing a lot of walking. This is one of the cases where comfort is more important than appearance. And realistically, no one's really going to care about the shoes that you wear when you're there. You should also bring a backpack with you, especially if there's an expo hall. Now, this tip may vary just based on the conference that you go to, but if it's something like the AAD meeting where you're getting tons and tons and tons of free samples and brochures, it will save you a lot of trouble in the shoulder department and in the back department. Now, this one's a biggie, the financial side of conferences. There's no real way getting around it. Conferences can be expensive, from registration, flights, hotels, food. It adds up, I'm not going to lie. But there are ways to make it manageable. Like I mentioned toward the beginning, registering early with the early bird discounts, that can be a big help. Some conferences also have discounts for students, so there may be a code that you can put in that can knock, 50 to even 100% of the conference registration fee off. Hotel rooms can be discounted too if the conference is partnered with that given hotel. And if you know someone that's going to the conference too, if it's a friend of yours or another classmate, it'd be a good idea to share a hotel room with them and split the costs. That can knock a good couple $100s off of your travel tab. And your school or the conference may offer travel stipends or scholarships, and it's a great idea to apply for them. It's just an opportunity for you to throw something in the wall and see what sticks, because it can work to your benefit. It is an investment, but in my experience, the opportunities that come with it are worth far much more in the long run. Now, like I mentioned earlier, meeting people is going to be a huge part of the experience. I think it's a good idea to have a short introduction ready. Give them your name, your year, the medical school that you're going to, and specialty of interest. And if you want to go that little extra mile, talk about the aspects of that specialty that interest you. And after introducing yourself to them, exchange contact info with them. Could be just getting their email or getting their LinkedIn. It's a good idea to reach out to them within a week, because it can help keep that connection alive. And you can get something from it. Like I mentioned earlier, that's how I was able to, in part, secure an audition rotation. So it's extremely, extremely recommended that you meet with these doctors or even other medical students and get their contact info and keep up with them. My last tip is don't just go to sessions that fill in your niche. Exploring outside your main interest can surprise you with useful knowledge, and it can help you in the long run too. Like I said about my experience with the AAD meeting, originally my interest lied just in Mohs surgery and skin cancer. But as I attended some of these other sessions that were outside of those, I thought that these were some interesting things too. And I took notes on them. And it's something that became useful as I went along my audition rotations. It was conversations to make with the attendings just from things that you learned at the conference. And building off of that, my interests in dermatology expanded beyond just Mohs surgery and skin cancer. From going to this conference and doing my auditions, I found that just general dermatology is really cool. I thought that working with underserved populations was something fulfilling for me. And I thought medical dermatology, exploring some of these rare diseases, was also super cool. So broadening your horizons is extremely useful, and you will find a lot of fulfillment out of that. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is things that you can do after attending the conference. Your work doesn't necessarily have to end once you fly back home. When I got back home, yeah, I did give myself a breather, but after that, I took the time to organize my notes and organize my contacts and keep track of who I met. It's a good idea to send a thank you message to anybody that you've met. And if you had a conversation with them that was promising or that you felt resonated with you in some aspect, it would also be a good idea to potentially set up a follow-up call. This gives you the opportunity to know more about the other person and also show more of yourself to that person. It could be a new physician mentor that knows other people from a residency program that could advocate for you or help, boost your career. Or it could be another medical student that's willing to share some research with you and let you hop on some of their projects and help you out, and vice versa. But keeping as many connections as you can is crucial in boosting your chances at advancing your career or just becoming a more complete physician and following your passions. Outside of the people aspect of things, though, I highly recommend that you really reflect on your experience. What were some key takeaways from going to the conference? What was the most useful to you? Was there anything that surprised you, good or bad? And what would you do differently next time knowing the things that you do now? Is this still something that you want to pursue? Did you maybe pick up on some new interests? What other potential conferences do you want to go to? Conferences aren't necessarily just one-time events. Their value grows with how you build upon them afterward. Well, it's about time I wrap this episode up, but before I do that, I just wanted to share some closing thoughts. Conferences are what you make of them. If you show up without a plan, you'll get something. But if you prepare, network with a purpose, and stay open to new experiences, you're going to come away with mentors, opportunities, and insights that can genuinely shape your career. For me, AAD gave me global networking and a chance to contribute through a poster that I helped out with. It brought me new friends. It gave me a ton of free stuff. It may become a big reason why I may be able to follow my passions. Having attended multiple conferences, they left me more connected and more confident and more inspired to do the things that I want to do. And I think that you'll get the same things out of it too should you attend a conference. But with that, thanks for tuning in to YPN's Guide to DOing Med School. Go look up a conference in your field. You never know who you'll meet or where it might lead.